Today we're here to do a deep dive into Google Analytics. And you may have seen that there's interplay between Facebook and Google. Google has GA4. We have multi-attribution funnels. There's a lot of weird data going on. There's the cookies being dropped out of Chrome and the other browsers. There's the conversion API for both Google and Facebook. I want to show you what really matters in Google Analytics. Whether you're e-commerce, agency, you're working in-house, you run a brand and you're trying to scale it, I want to show you what we see as the most important parts inside Google Analytics. By the time you see this, if you're watching this later, the interface may have changed, but as of December 2021, this is the best way to proceed in Google Analytics. You guys ready? All right, here we go. So I'm inside multiple Google Analytics accounts, and typically you're probably used to PowerPoints from other people. I want to show you what it really looks like and what we do to be able to optimize. The first thing is when you look in Google Analytics is you want to see, they'll bring you to home and you'll see all these different things on, do I look at the audience or acquisition? Maybe I want to go to conversions. How do you know what to do? The first thing is, what is the business goal? So in this case, I'm looking at a site that topchiro.nl, they have a chain of chiropractic offices and we're trying to drive chiropractors. So where are these users coming in, and are we driving more patients who are checking in? Are we ranking in Google? And right, we have to first start with that business goal. When we know what that business goal is, it becomes a lot easier to be able to optimize. Now I'm going to show you another one, a completely different business. This is Escape Fitness. They sell commercial fitness equipment across the United States, the UK, Asia. They have distributors mainly that are selling, and you can see that we have got traffic all over the place. And we have a different set of goals because we're trying to drive more revenue using PPC, using SEO, using our blog, using email marketing, using our distributor channels. So we're looking at something very different because the combination of goals, content, and targeting are very different. And this is where most analytics people mess up. They don't understand the strategy and they think analytics is about generating charts and reports. And that's why there's so many third-party tools that will generate these reports. Now, no matter what kind of client it is, I'm going to show you what it looks like top down, all the way down to the account, all the way down to the reports that we think are the most important. These are the reports we use every single day in optimizing to drive more sales. If you're a performance marketer, this is what you need to know. First off, you have your manager accounts. You can see up here, I've got lots of different accounts. I have my personal account, but we have Access at Chiro Revenue as a manager account. We have Dennis at Blitz Metrics, which is invited to a number of things, and we have Access at, we like to have a general email that we put it under, not a particular person's email. And any client can invite you as a user and as a manager. I think there's a limit, like 2 managers or 3 managers, and only one of them, or is it 2 of them, can have API access. But make sure, so for example, if I go over to, for some reason, I have to like keep re-adding some of these things. But if I go to, look at all these ones that I have. Access at Blitz Metrics. Sometimes you want to use multiple browsers just because you can switch back and forth, so Google doesn't log you out out of the other components. But here, if I'm inside this one for, so you got to always verify it. So I'm now inside Access at blitzmetrics.com. I can see all the different accounts that I have, quite a few of them, right? Right now I'm inside Escape Fitness, and for some reason they like to throw you on this active view screen. It really doesn't matter like how many active users we have. You want to go to Acquisition, All Traffic, and the Source Medium Report. If you're looking at it in the new interface, you're still going to go to Acquisition, and when you look at traffic, the default first view is Source Medium. What are we looking at here in the Source Medium Report? Well, by default, up here you can see we're looking at a week's worth of data. And if you've got a lot of traffic, in this case here, 7,000 users, I can probably do some analysis here. But if it's a small site like a local retailer or store or something e-com that's just getting going and there's only a couple hundred users and maybe a dozen conversions, you don't have enough data. I want enough data to be able to see what's going on. So I like to step back and say last 30 days here. When I'm looking at the last 30 days, I can see trends. Be careful about seasonality. Maybe there's Black Friday, maybe there's Valentine's Day, or something that would cause distortion in the data based on the time period that you're looking at. You could, for example, compare over last year for the same time period, but given there's differences, maybe the stores aren't open because of safety protocols, this kind of thing. So just be careful. The longer the look back period, the further back you go, the more you're going to have distortion in the data, and the trade-off is to get more data, right? More data gives you the distortion of a longer look back period where things may have changed. So understand what the balance is between those two. Now let's break down what the different sources are. This is kind of small, so if you're old like me, you got to make it bigger. 34,000 users, and 34% came from Google Organic. That's what we would typically expect. Direct none is in there. If direct none is over 10%, then we know we have a problem. There's something goofy with our data. It could be we don't have site-wide SSL. Could be email marketing where the campaign parameters aren't tagged. It could be a redirect issue. In this case, we have a bit of a redirect issue. By the way, if you're good at Google Analytics, you're good at optimizing. They're one and the same thing. The idea of metrics to analysis to action is I'm looking at the data. I'm using my intelligent detective mind. I'm curious to figure out why certain things are true. Why is my conversion rate going up on this particular kind of ad? Why is email marketing working with this kind of headline versus whatever? So the irony is if you're great at Google Analytics, you're actually great at the other channels. You understand, for example, what is happening on Facebook. So I could be here on Facebook and I'm looking at a set of campaigns, right? And I'm constantly going to be bouncing back and forth because Google Analytics gives me a starting point to figure out what kinds of things might be good or not good. And then I'm going to look at my email marketing. I'm going to look at my shopping cart. I'm going to look at my Google ads. I'm going to look at whatever the other sources of traffic are. And really, it's a jumping point to figure out who do I need to talk to next to try to figure out what's going on and take whatever the next action is. So if you are in Google Analytics and you think it's about generating weekly reports that you send to the client and you send the same set of charts, what are you going to get?
A confused client, an unhappy client, and definitely not any changes in results because there's no analysis, which means there's not going to be a different action.
So what is the most common mistake of people where they think they're doing analytics? We're inside Google Analytics, but what are they really doing, 99% of people?
Most people are just sending the clients the same numbers that they see on the screen.
They're reporting. This should be called Google Metrics, Google Chart Making, Google Pie Graph 3D Generator. Analytics is where intelligent human beings like you and me and Tristan are looking at the data and figuring out what's going on here and what can I do to affect the business goal, to drive more sales, increase the conversion rate, increase ROAS, kill the things that aren't working, right? That kind of analysis, Google doesn't tell you. And you know why they don't? Because they're not even collecting your goal. Imagine if as part of Google Analytics, they said, and by the way, I have a chip on my shoulder because I built the analytics at Yahoo 20 years ago. Imagine if the tool came in and said, hey, what's your target for 2021? Quarter by quarter, what is your breakout? What are your budgets? How much do you expect in sales? What are your new products? How is that going to affect your marketing mix? If Google Analytics had that, then they could put thresholds against the data and tell you, well, it looks like you're 10% behind your goal. It looks like this one campaign isn't doing as well compared last year, and here's why. They don't tell you why. They just generate charts. So this is called Google Charts. It's up to us to know how to use the tool to figure out what's going on. You could be a surgeon and you buy the best tools in the world, the best scalpels, the best operating room table, the best whatever kind of equipment. I don't know what's in a hospital. I never go. But that doesn't make you a competent surgeon. You got to know how to use the tools. All right, so you ready to operate? Now we're looking at the campaigns here. And we see Google Direct, Google PPC, CPC, and that's 23%. We've got all of these metrics like users, new users. Do I really care about users and new users? Why does that matter?
Users and new users?
Yeah.
No, because if once you isolate it down by the day, Google Analytics is going to section off users and new users by that actual day itself. So you really need to be able to look at the traffic as a whole and the sources from where they're coming from, because you could have people visiting the site multiple times.
Right. So now I'm going to come in here and maybe I want to look at something like the traffic I have versus the conversion rate, right? Oh, well, what does this tell me? It looks like the conversion rate bounces up and down. There's no clear pattern here. Or let's say I'm telling you what not to do, by the way. Or I'm looking at the bounce rate or pages per session. Most of this doesn't matter. The first time you look at the data, you're like, all right, 32,000 out of 34,000 of my users are brand new. That means people aren't coming back. But I don't expect them to come back here because they're coming in and they're looking at buying a set of barbells. They buy their barbell. Why would they come back next week? Oh, I need a jump rope maybe, right? You don't expect that. So if you know the customer journey, you know what's going on here. And other times, this is a distraction. They look at the bounce rate. which of course correlates with pages per session, because the higher the bounce rate, the fewer pages people are going to see. So look here. We have an overall site-wide bounce rate of 56%. Does that tell us anything?
No.
No, it doesn't, because when I send people to a landing page on Google PPC and I want people to buy, they're either going to buy or not. I send them to a landing page from my email to get them to opt into a form. If I have a 90% bounce rate on that form, that means I have a 10% conversion rate.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty good, isn't it? So this bounce rate doesn't mean anything because it's averaging out a bunch of other items. Let's take a look a little further. Average session time doesn't tell us anything. And so it's easy to mess around and look at these different pieces. But what I care about is the business goal. I start with the business goal in my Google Analytics, and then I look at the supporting metrics, which are diagnostic metrics. You get this 1 point, you will be ahead of 99% of other people in digital marketing that are generating reports and looking at all this data and say, oh, I can break it out by country and by city and by time of day and by whatever. So what? The whole point of analytics is to answer the so what question. So here we drove $33,000 of revenue, you can see. And that's broken out by these particular channels. So what does this tell me? I got 11,000 from Google Organic, 4,000 pounds direct, and Google drove 14,000 in this period. So if I drove $14,000 in revenue here in this period, what is this telling me? Is this good or bad?
It's good. It means you have it means you have a campaign that's making you money, but you have to be able to also look at your costs to see if it's profitable.
So let's see, is it profitable? Let's go to Google Ads and break it down here and see that we spent $4,500 and we generated 14.5. How do we know if that's good or bad?
Well, one number's bigger than the other, of course.
Yeah. So we'd like to look at, if it's e-com or direct sales, we want to look at the ROAS. In this case here, 4.5 into 14 is 3. So every pound we spent or dollar drove $3 in revenue. Is that good or bad? It depends on the nature of the product. If it's something like info products, that's fantastic. If it's a wholesale distribution or commodity kind of product where there's really low margins and not room for marketing, not room for sales, then that's really bad. But if you don't know what the acceptable margin is, that in this case, we know that we want to keep at least a 2. So this isn't really bad. And we can see it's broken up between, see now we're starting to do analysis, the UK and the US. So this brand is better known in the UK. They've been there forever and they've just started their US presence. And you can see that most of our sales, 12,000 out of the 14,000, came from the UK, and we spent $3,000 to generate the 12, which gives us a 4 ROAS, which is better. And we look at the US, we spent 1,500 pounds and we generated 2,500, so it's about 1.5, so not as good. Mm-hmm. Does that mean then we should put more money into the UK or we should kill the US campaigns?
Well, you could optimize the U.S. campaigns because they're still profitable, but it's dependent on the margins, like you said, as well. So if a 2 ROAS is acceptable, meaning that there's a high enough margin on the product, then you can continue to scale that campaign. But it depends on the business goal. Like you said, it has to start with the business goal. And
if we're not well known in the United States, then we're building in the fact that the campaign launch is costing us money. Mm-hmm. And there's more people that are searching on Escape Fitness, which of course is a brand search term, is going to convert better. Now let's break it out a little bit further and see how we're doing at the campaign level where we have different products. So we can see, well, in this case, okay, let me go back. Let's look at because I want to get more data. There's not enough data here. I know it's 2,500 clicks and 15 transactions, which is just barely enough. I want to look at least 20 conversions. Okay, so now I'm back here. And you know what? I'll just go to keywords. We're selling different products. And by the way, if you don't do e-com, the same concepts apply. I'm going to show lead gen. I'm going to show you a couple of these other ones. Now I'm saying, okay, I've got this overall number. I drove this amount in sales, and I want to understand the composition. For example, I know that remarketing is going to perform better than hitting a cold audience. And that becomes a weighted average. If I know in the UK, for example, that we're better known and a lot more people are coming in on the term Escape Fitness, and you can see here it's converting way better, then I can't exactly take credit for that. If we're not known in the United States, then I'm not going to have as much, my percent traffic from brand search terms is going to be not as good. So look, now I'm sorting by clicks. So I've got 10,000 clicks. This happens to be AdWords, but we can do this in any channel. We can look at organic. I'll do that in a second. And we can see that brand search terms are converting better. And we can look at the value per user. We can look at these conversion rates. Now, if I resort and I sort by, let's say, revenue, right? Because right now I'm sorting by clicks. But if I sort by, oops, accidentally. Now I'll sort by transactions or sort by revenue. I'm going to see a different, how did I come over here? I'm going to see a different picture. So let's sort by revenue. And sometimes you have an issue, especially in higher end B2B lead gen, where some products are worth way more, right? Maybe some conversions are $20 and some conversions are $20,000. You want to be careful about that. So cost per lead, cost per sale, you really can't look at if the variability in conversions are different. Then you're going to look at ROAS. Oh, here we go. Now I'm looking at revenue descending, 4,000, 3,000, 3,000, 1,600. So of this 14,000, looking at just the top 4 items or the top 4 keywords or top 3 or 4 ads is going to give me usually 50 to 60% of the overall traffic. In this case here, I'm getting about 65% in the top 3 or 4. The funny thing is you can see that, well, in this case we have 10, but oftentimes we'll have lots and lots of these different keywords. We have escape fitness as a brand search term. Here we have dumbbell kit. You can imagine with coronavirus, people want to be able to work out in their home. You got rich people that they don't want to go to the gym. They want to go outdoors. They're buying fitness equipment. They're traveling to cool places because they don't have to be in an office because the city's shut down. And so this is great for us. We can piggyback off of that if we understand what people are doing. Dumbbell kit, we spent 131 pounds and drove 3,300 pounds. That's basically a 10. No, sorry, it's a 30. That's a 30 ROAS.
Wow.
Isn't that pretty good? Wouldn't you like to spend 100 and get back 3,000? Now, why is that an inaccurate assessment? People that do analytics, they make that kind of mistake. That's a rookie mistake. Why can I not draw that conclusion?
Well, there's a number of factors other than that exact term, dumbbell kit, because that's showing the conversions and the clicks of somebody coming in, but that does not mean that that is the direct attribution that they're coming from.
It could be first click, last click. It also could be, here you have 366 clicks that drove one transaction. One person, and these dumbbell kits are expensive. This is not something you buy at Aldi or something for like $20 or Amazon. So one kit was 3,000 pounds. So you got to be careful, right? You have to look at the statistical significance. So here we have 23 that came from Escape Fitness, but what drove them to type in Escape Fitness? They probably saw a YouTube video. They saw the podcast where Matthew, the founder, has interviewed all these Olympians and people that are the CEOs of the big companies that drove brand search, that drove email, that drove them talking to a salesperson, and then later they just typed in Escape Fitness and bought the thing, right? Mm-hmm. So you've got to be careful about the entire customer journey. Now let's go look at the search queries. What drove people in? So the search queries are different than the keywords, because these are things that people typed that we matched to, depending on the match type. I don't want to go into a whole thing on Google AdWords. I just want to show you, to be good at Google Analytics, you have to understand where the traffic's coming from. So if it's coming from Google Ads, you better be damn good at optimizing on Google Ads. If it's coming from Facebook ads, if it's coming from, like whatever the underlying channels are, you have to understand how to optimize those underlying channels if you're going to look at the data in Google Analytics, yeah?
Yeah.
See how important that is?
You have to be able to look at all the numbers at once as well, because we could blanket an answer like, hey, why is this conversion not as good? But then when you actually look at the numbers and you see one purchase versus 23, it's a significantly different set of data that you're looking at.
Now let's look at the shopping campaigns. So Google Shopping, actually, no, we don't have this one on right now. Let's switch. We'll go to Search Console. Search Console is my second favorite place to go, no matter what kind of account it is, because I want to see what the queries are, which is where people are searching, and then we might show up or not show up. So you can see here, we've had, okay, so let's sort by impressions. I like to sort by impressions. They, for some reason, like to sort by clicks first. I want to know where people are looking and what they're looking for. 51,000 impressions. And again, when you look at just the top 4 or 5, this is called top N. Let's just call N as 5. We always look at the top 5, and I could ignore everything else because I have here potentially thousands. In fact, I have 3,635 keywords. I'm just going to look at the top 5. because I don't have enough time to look at all of them. The top 5 in AdWords, the top 5 email campaigns. I'm looking at the top 5 until I run out of statistically significant data. So of the 50,000, you can see most of the time we're showing up in Escape Fitness, which is the brand, right? Someone typing in Escape Fitness, they know who they are. No one just types in Escape Fitness. They already have to know, like, oh, well, in Europe, Escape Fitness is well known, and I go to a gym and I see their equipment, and I'm like, wow, how do I get one of those in my own house? Oh, I see Escape Fitness because it's all over their stuff. They have great branding, right? That's how a lot of people find out. And they type in fitness. Well, that's kind of cool. So we showed up 2,200 times when someone typed in fitness. Remember, this is organic now. We're in Search Console. This is not PPC. So this fitness could be fitness equipment, what are fitness tips, fitness on, how do I get fit, all these different things related to fitness. And we showed up 2,000 times and we had 0 clicks. Well, why is that?
Because an impression, that's why you sort by impressions, because you want to know that people are searching to make sure that we're showing up.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that they're actually clicking. We can also see, I can see the numbers now. I couldn't see them earlier. That on our position, we were 65th.
That's
meaning,
page 7.
Yeah.
Page 7.
And and you tell the joke about the best place to hide a dead body.
Yeah, where's the best place to hide a dead body?
Do it. Tell it.
Page 2 of Google, or page 2 of Yahoo, or even sometimes page 1 of Yahoo. Right?
Oh,
I know. I used to wear purple every day. We had purple in the cafeterias. We had purple sprinklers. We had purple couches. I wore purple because I had free Yahoo swag.
And then you worked with the mattress company, purple. That's been a color that's been
purple
in your
there
life.
too. Yeah, purple's a great color. It's the color of royalty. If you were an ancient Roman and you became an emperor or like some important, you wore something called a toga praetexta, which is a purple toga. And why was purple? Because that's one of the most difficult colors to be able to get.
Create.
Yeah. Now we have modern dyes and you have any color you want, but that's why purple is so cool. Position 65, yet even with that, had this many impressions. Bumper plates in stock. Home gym. Wow. What a great opportunity. If there's 1,000 people that are making it all the way to the 8th page in Google search, how many people do you think there are on the first page that are typing in home gym?
Thousands.
And we know they're looking for commercial floor equipment, gym flooring, weight tree. So we're sorting by impressions first because we want to see where are we missing potential traffic. Now, if we sort by clicks, it's where are we actually getting the traffic. And now we see a different set of people searching for direct products in brand terms. 63% of the 1,795 clicks are coming on the brand search Escape Fitness. And a common mistake that marketers are making in Google Analytics is they blend together the brand search with the non-brand because it makes them look better because brand search does so much better. So just be careful. Let's look at the country breakout. How much is UK, which is the dominant country they started with, versus the United States versus, well, they have distributors in India and the Philippines and Australia. Well, this is interesting. Why is it that we have 16,000 impressions here in the US and the UK? We don't even have as many, but the UK is the dominant purchasing and, as you saw, and dominant in traffic and dominant in just overall branding. Why is that?
You can see that the transactions are much higher as well. I'd have to look at the rest of the data to be able to see. What do you see?
Well, I'm coming over here and looking at revenue and looking at the quality here. It's cheating because I happen to know the data here.
Yeah, and you're seeing it. I can't see it all. We've got multiple screens.
Yep.
We've also got our royal purple now in the background.
Beautiful purple.
But what is it, Dennis?
The nature of the traffic is different because of Matthew's podcast, and he's interviewing a lot of celebrities in the United States. Then he's getting the Arnold Schwarzenegger followers and the Frank Zane followers, and he interviews the CEO of 24 Hour Fitness. He's got a big blog, a lot of traffic on YouTube. And so he also has a second home. Actually, his main home is in Newport Beach in the United States. So we're going to see a different amount of traffic because of that. And thus, because it's top of funnel traffic, our e-com conversion rates are lower. Look, 0.14% versus 0.8%. So if you look here, you can say, wow, from a traffic standpoint, we're doing a lot better in the United States. From a revenue standpoint, we're doing better in the UK.
Crushing it in the UK.
Yeah. So the key is you've got to be able to tell the story. If you're an analytics expert, you're not some kind of math geek. You're actually an expert storyteller. You're a detective able to figure out what's actually going on in the data, right? The matrix, you can see instead of the green lines going down the black screen, you see the woman in the red dress. You guys old enough to follow me on that? Matrix? Classic stuff. You can look at things like social. I think that Google kind of doesn't want to show what's going on, and they're hiding the Facebook stuff. In this case here, they're showing a fair number of sessions that are coming from Facebook. But there's so much overlap, and there's so much data that's being dropped because in this case with e-com, we still have more purchases that are coming through on desktop than mobile. When people cross from mobile to desktop, you can't cookie that user. And you guys know, with the exception of some of the new things that Google's trying to do, that Google is based on a cookie and also sometimes a UTM parameter. And when people have multiple devices, and if you have a lot of mobile and social traffic, increasingly your Google Analytics is going to be not as accurate. Do you guys understand why that is?
Well, if they're only tracking by cookies and there's different users, then it's going to flag them as different users, which is why you started off in the beginning by saying just looking at the user volume, new users is not accurate. It's not an accurate assessment because if you switch from right now on Escape Fitness on your device to your phone, it's going to track you twice, and it's just not true that you are two different people.
How many devices do you have?
Well, 1, 2, I've got 3 right here, all ready to go. So,
and those are all different, and some can be cookied and can't. So he's using his iPad and his phone and his laptop, and some of us have multiple phones. I've got my phone in my pocket. Those are all going to look like different users with different sessions. It's going to screw up your bounce rates. It's going to over-report your users. Google knows about it. They don't have a great answer to this. Event tracking and moving the GA4 will help somewhat. Now let's take a look at audiences. Of course, they start with the overview. The overview gives you kind of a buffet view of who they are and what's the language and what's the country, and this usually doesn't tell you anything. When I go to users, it might be once every few months. Initially in the very beginning when they're a client, or if you're on the client side, I just want to understand how is this different, and every few months see, is this changing? So is my country mix changing? Probably not, because I can see in general I have more UK users. City, it's fun to be able to look at this, and you can even go down to the particular users in this active user reporting thing, but really, if 10% of my users are in London, and I report on this every few months, is that really going to change?
No.
Unless I've opened a new store in London or I have a campaign targeting London or whatnot. It's interesting to see. So initially, I want to see this data once. So I want to look at the browser, for example, and see that most users are using Chrome versus Safari. Like, this doesn't change, okay? The user stuff, this audience stuff here doesn't really change. And sometimes people want to come to the user explorer. Oh, look, I've got all these individual users and I can see what their path is, but their data is anonymized. That's interesting, but that's just like looking at the real-time data. Now, if you have an event and you want to see what's going on, you have enough data here. So this particular user has had 82 sessions, 32 minutes each time. It's probably an internal person.
Yep.
Who the heck's going to come to this website 82 times for half an hour each time?
Minutes.
It's a sales rep. It's a sales rep configuring orders for a customer, right? And you'd address this coming over here and setting up these different views, right? And some will include filtering out internal IPs. Some just have UK data, products, right? You can see we have these different views. Totally fine to do that. Just be careful what you're looking at, right? And we have these other apps as well, these other websites. There is, as you know, with Google, a cross-domain tracking issue they have not fixed for the last 15 years. So just be careful about looking at data, which can create more direct none when people are going back and forth between these different domains. Mm-hmm. So let's review what the most important things are that you're looking inside Google Analytics. Number one is you're starting with the business goal. Revenue, ROAS, leads, cost per lead, whatever your targets are to the big boss. If you're the entrepreneur and you own the money, or if you're the agency, you're being responsible for spending the money or the website or running the campaigns, what exactly is that business goal? Not, I want more revenue and sales.
Exactly. And that business goal is your measuring stick for every number you look at, which is why users could be irrelevant, or you could have dumbbell kits be basically null and void in comparison to other search terms or traffic, because it's measuring against the business goal, not against the data that's displayed. Oftentimes, especially as marketers, once we hop inside, then we start to get tricked by the data. We let all these numbers thrown at us make us think that a situation is different than what it actually is. So always have the business goal as your measuring stick.
The business goal makes it easier for you to see what data you need to look at. Otherwise, you're just going to look at the same bunch of charts, but depending on what the issue is and what you're trying to solve, you're going to see a different set of metrics every time. And as a good detective, you're going to go from the business goals to the derived metrics. So what are those trade-off kinds of metrics, like cost per conversion versus number of conversions, or what my bounce rate is versus how much traffic I'm driving from different sources, or how many touches I have in the funnel. If I've gone from 5 touches to 10 touches, that could look like a lower conversion rate based on last click, but actually it's building stuff in the top and middle of the funnel. Let's take a look at attribution, which we can look at on Facebook and Google. So attribution is relatively new to Facebook, and you can see here they're looking at channel groupings and the number of touches. We're still in Escape Fitness. We can set up these new projects. It's telling us that the most common path is that they go from organic search into direct. Direct none means we don't know where it came from. So it's either bookmark or type in, which could be the case. You know, if you're a well-known, if you're a media company or someone's typing in news, or it's something they just go to all the time. Maybe it's like a gambling site. People want to come in every day and check their stats. Here we're saying organic search and then direct versus organic, you know, once to direct, direct twice. And then down here we have paid search, referral, and social. So all of these are different paths and different path lengths. So the 11th most common path here is direct times 6. I don't believe someone is going to come in on a bookmark or type in. They're going to type in escapefitness.com for 6 different visits and come to the website. Usually when you see a lot of directs, you can see here, direct times 3, direct times 2, direct 4, 5, that's a tracking issue. When I see data that's like this, that tells me I probably don't even want to look at this kind of data, because I'd rather look at good data than, or, you know, instead of bad data, I'd rather see no data at all. Okay?
Data you can take action on.
Yeah, I want to be able to look at legit data. Now let's switch gears, and we're going to look at another company. We're going to look at a chain of 7 chiropractic offices in the Netherlands, all over the Netherlands. And here the view is slightly different. I think this is let me make sure it's the one that I want to look at. Yeah, okay. So this is a slightly different format. And, you know, Google and all the other tools are rolling out different formats. So sometimes the navigation will cause you to say, like, oh my goodness, where is this one thing? It's disappeared. For example, I'm going from, no, actually, no, this one is here. I just didn't click right. So I'm looking at source medium. But now I'm looking for people that are coming to visit a chiropractic office. And they might be on their 10th adjustment, and they need to pull it up in Google Maps and get there. So maybe they our returning user numbers are going to be a little bit different. And thus our conversion numbers are going to look a little bit different, because we got a bunch of people who are already existing customers, so they're not going to buy again, right? They're going to go through their 20 visit care plan. So I might want to filter for new users, because if I include all the users, it might look like my conversion rate is worse. And let's say we do a good job in retention, and people are visiting multiple times or coming to the website to read articles because we want to educate people, and here's exercises you can do. It might make our conversion rate look bad when actually it's a really good thing, because we're engaging with the customer more in the middle of the funnel. So you can see here we've got Google CPC as our first source. Direct none's down at 16, which is okay. And then a bunch of Facebook traffic. A lot of you guys are confused where you'll say, well, why are these different Facebook things here? Why is there m.facebook and l.facebook and ls.facebook.com? Those are all different versions of mobile Facebook, where Facebook is trying to get credit for the tracking, so they do something that's called a link shim. A link shim is when the user is going from a secure site, right? So it's HTTPS and the lock is closed, like on an e-commerce site. Most of the top sites out there are site-wide SSL. But some of these sites, if you're working with a smaller site, there's not site-wide SSL, or there's landing pages on the site that are not secure. And that causes breakage, because the HTTP protocol requires that if you go from secure to non-secure, you drop the user agent. User agent means the referring URL, the browser, the computer they're on, operating system, all of this. So they do these things to try to give you more tracking, because they want to show up in the analytics and get more credit. So we can see what's going on here, and if things are done properly and I go to my Google Ads, I'm going to see these items show up here. But sometimes they're not. So if you're on the client side, then you've got a configuration issue. So what are people typing? Chiropractor, chiropractor Rotterdam, chiropractor Tilburg, chiropractor Eindhoven, right? That's what we'd expect. And we would do the same thing. This is on the paid side. And then I'm going to look at search and see what are those queries. And I don't care whether it's paid or organic. If people are coming in, I want to be able to get this traffic. So one of the things that we like to do is see, okay, which of these things are driving patients? So organically, what is a chiropractor? Chiropractor Eindhoven, chiropractor Tilburg. We saw these. If something is working well on the organic side, what should we do on the paid side?
Advertise it. If it's working well organically,
That's
we
right.
should advertise
We
it.
want to amplify the things that are working
Amplify it.
well. Now, some of these things are a little weird, like what does a chiropractor do? But if we find that it turns into patients, then why not, right? Now we sort by impressions and see if we see a different view versus clicks. And this chiropractor search keyword, it probably isn't chiropractor. We know that this is mind-blowing for people that don't know this on search engines. 50% of searches have never been typed before in the history of the search engine.
50% have never been typed before.
50% of searches. How is it that half of searches have never been typed before? I mean, you would think someone would type in chiropractor, chiropractor near me, back pain. I mean, you would think that'd be like 99% of searches. How likely is it that you and I might type in a search that's never been typed in before?
Well, it sounds like 50% odds.
That's 50%. And the reason why is the majority of searches are getting longer and longer because people are being specific, including misspelling things. Like I might type in, best Italian restaurant in Henderson, Nevada that is open during coronavirus, something like that.
And then also people are lazy and will just type in best Italian and let Google do the work for them, or they'll misspell it, especially like BST, and then most people won't spell Italian.
Yeah. So I'm mining from what's working on the organic side, and then I'm going to come in here and tune the paid side.
And before you click out of there, I would also notice that the average position you can see is 7.4, 6.8, 11. So what that's telling us is even though that they're showing up the impressions here, a local chiropractor needs to be in page 1, page 2, page 3 if it's a local search. So that means that they're being outranked by other people, whether they be large brands or they be other local brands. Mm-hmm. And so for chiropractors specifically, tying to their goal, they need to be in page 1 because they need to be in the local 3-pack. That's different than the Escape Fitness that we were looking at earlier. Mm-hmm. There's a different business goal tied to their end, which is calls versus e-commerce conversions. Yeah.
And then when we look at Google My Business, which I know is not part of Google Analytics, but I consider everything to be part of Google Analytics, we'll see how much of the traffic was from traditional Google search versus maps and local search, because we want to be in the local 3-pack. So if you're doing this for a chain of restaurants or a chain of retail store, other kinds of locations, we want to see how much of it's actually coming from local versus like buying our way there. So there's paid and organic, and there's local, and there's general search. Oftentimes, when you come here and look at, let's see, you look at these campaigns, people misunderstand the things that you can pass through on campaigns. So in a UTM parameter, you can pass through campaign, keyword, source, other things that you can inject, and that includes things like email. You can say email is a campaign. You can have 5 different campaigns, like a radio landing page or whatever is a campaign. A campaign is nothing more than a grouping, right? So here notice I'm not in the Google ads. I'm still under acquisition. I'm looking at campaigns. Campaigns are driven by the UTM campaign parameter, so that we have auto tagging in Google for our paid ads. So that's why this is showing up here. But if we're doing email marketing and we're properly tagging with UTM parameters, this might show up as email customer welcome sequence message 1, right? Or the campaign would be welcome sequence, and the keyword could be message 1, message 2, right? These pieces. So think about how campaigns, whether it's paid or organic, are groupings of traffic, groupings of users that are coming in. And same thing here. I'm looking at organic keywords grouped together. I'm looking at paid keywords that are grouped together. Your data is only as good as how you organize it. If your Google Tag Manager isn't set up properly, then I might not even trust that the data is even worth looking at. So let's take a look at Escape Fitness. I'll just do a search, which will it's a brand search. Here's our ad here, right? Now I've got products, the frames, gym design. I don't want to click on it. By the way, clicking on a paid ad doesn't screw over the advertiser. You know why?
Because Google's so smart, they know the difference.
And they also are judging based on quality score. So if you increase the client's CTR, you're improving their quality score, but they're having to pay $5 for the click or whatever it might be. Now we look at Escape Fitness on the organic side. And by the way, this is taking up the entire screen. So the paid side with the site links, and then the site links also on the organic side. And the first thing I'm looking at is the Google Tag Assistant, and I can see that everything's looking good. By the way, if you're looking at analytics and you're not inspecting the Google Tag Assistant and the Facebook Pixel Explorer and things like Built With every month, then you might be missing on data. I see it happen all the time. Whoever's in charge of the website is always going to claim that everything's good and the tracking's there, and then you find something that's broken, and this happens thousands of times.
You go to log in and nothing's there.
So look, I'm looking at Google's tool. This is a Chrome plugin. I don't even like using Chrome anymore because it's bloated. I like to use Safari if I can. I was talking to a Chrome engineer at Google one time, and they told me, we used to make fun of Firefox because Firefox was so bloaty, but now Chrome is so bloaty, we're like Firefox, was before. So we can see that we have Tag Manager, and all these other tags are sitting inside our Tag Manager. Now in Europe and certain countries, most of you guys are in Australia, remarketing is just fine. In fact, Australia is even more lax about data and spam and privacy than the United States, which is why spammers, they launch their campaigns in Australia, New Zealand. They like the Kiwis and Aussies. And I'm looking at Facebook, and I can see that the pixels here, there's different events that are being fired. These I can track through Google Tag Manager. I can fire the events through there, and I can also configure those events to live inside my Google Analytics, which is beyond the scope of this session. But hopefully, this gives you a good idea of what's working. We know that we can look at whatever matters to us from the overall standpoint. You can see, right, e-commerce, I'm trying to drive sales, and I can break it out by whatever segment I want. I can set up my canned reports up here. But it's the same thing no matter what the business is start with those business metrics, make sure that it's properly tracked, tie all the way down to the campaign, to the keyword, to the source of the traffic. Start looking at attribution so you can see funnel sources. And now you are an optimization expert that's driving incremental revenue, driving more sales instead of, where's my weekly TPS report?